Hello everybody. In the current affairs this week, the week ended 6th of April 2025. The news this week was dominated by tariffs imposed by the US on all its major trading partners. It has imposed different rates of tariffs on different countries. The rate of tariff imposed on India was at the rate of 27%. Hence, in order to understand how this tariff would work is that all the goods exported by India to the US will have an import duty of 27% when these goods are exported from India to the US. So something which costed 100 to the US customer today, after this imposition of tariff, will cost 127 when these goods are exported from India and it reaches to the US customer. Now, this is the rate of tariff which has been imposed on India. But US, as I said, has imposed tariff on the other countries of the world as well. On China, it has imposed a tariff of 34%. On Vietnam, it has imposed a tariff of say 46%, and on Bangladesh, it has imposed a tariff of 37%. So India has got a comparative advantage when it exports its goods to the US. Another feature of this tariff is that these tariffs are on goods and not on services. So all the IT services which are exported by India to the US would not be subjected to any tariff. Products exported from India like pharmaceutical and semiconductors are out of the ambit of tariff as of now. These imposition of tariffs led to a substantial impact on the various markets globally. The Indian stock market declined this week by more than 2% across all the three major benchmarks, which is Nifty 50, Nifty Mid Cap and Nifty Small Cap. The FIIs were sellers to the extent of more than 13,000 crores and the DIIs were buyers to the extent of 5,600 crores. The sector on the stock market which impacted the most and declined the most was the Nifty IT, which declined by more than 9% in just one single week. The reason for this decline was that all these IT companies, the major customers are located in the US, and if the US, on account of this imposition of tariffs, goes into recession, then the revenues and growth of these IT companies would get impacted. The sector which got impacted the least was Nifty Banking, which practically, despite the falling market, was unmoved. On the commodity front, Brent crude declined by around 11% in just 1 week. 11% in 1 week, which is a good news for India, but that was an indication that the global demand and global economy would slow down on account of these imports, this imposition of tariffs by the US. Gold in India was up by more than 2%, but silver declined in India by more than 7%. The US stock markets suffered the most globally. Nasdaq declined by a massive 10% this week, and the S&P 500 declined by 9% this week. Even the other global indices like the Japanese MSCI Japan benchmark declined by more than 7%. Now, if we look at the impact on India, net, as I said, IT services, pharmaceuticals have not been subjected to tariff, and India as such is a more domestic faced economy rather than an export driven economy. So the impact on India on account of these tariffs is quite limited to a few sectors rather than economy as a whole. When it comes to the impact on the US, it is expected that US will go into recession and there would be a substantial inflation on account of the increased cost in the hands of the US customers, and the US corporates will also suffer on account of the recessionary trend and the inflation. So this is the reason basically why the US stock markets declined. But I feel that one of the factors which is being ignored by this market today is, and all the observers of the markets and the economy is, that these tariffs would lead to very substantially large revenue for the US government. So when there is a tariff of 27% on Indian goods, that 27 on every 100 will go to the US government, and that will boost up the revenues of the US government. Yes, the US customer would suffer, but the revenues of the US government will be sharply up on account of these tariffs. The US government has an option to either strengthen its balance sheet and its budgetary positions, or it can pass over the advantages to the US taxpayers and the US economy back in one way or another. That is all for this week. Thank you.